Can you light a cigarette with Conqueror's lightning? I've never really thought about it until right now because Sanji could show us the truth here very soon. I think he's got a big chance at awakening a massive hockey bloom, and that might actually play into how the Straw Hats save Princess Gunko? They might be wondering, Manu, Sanji wasn't even in this chapter. Well, the reason I really wanted to dig into the blonde wander Mr. Princey Boy here today is because I honestly just wanted to get a little bit ahead of the curve. As you know, YouTube is a little bit of a game, and I'm the player. But don't you worry, I think there's some absolutely insane stuff about Gunko and her true name and origin that I dug into and might have found some really cool stuff. But let's be real, there's also a decent chance that someone else has already covered it. Since I've been covering the official release on Sundays for quite a while now, I know that sometimes I can be a little bit late to the party. But to be fair, I've been wanting to talk about Sanji for actually a couple of weeks now, but I couldn't really place when I was gonna do that until now, because now he's of course on the move to save our dear old Nami Swan. However, you're watching the video, you know there's chapters down here. It's a long video. If you're just here to vibe with me about Gunko and the chapter, since maybe no one actually uncovered her sneaky little secrets and what Oda's actually drawing on here, the power is in your hands. If you don't like Sanji, click like I don't know, like here. It's probably when it starts. But I do hope that you're gonna stick around, because in reality, I think that Sanji is gonna be an incredibly pivotal character towards the big end of the Elbaf battle. Because let's face it, the Mugiwara no Gordon Ramsay over here is about to face either Summers or Killingham. Probably Summers, if we're being completely honest, I think. The map that Oda gave us in chapter 1172 and the game plan from 1171 show us that Sanji is heading straight into the thorny hole of Summers. Wait, sorry, that sounded wrong. The thorny hell of Summers. Freudian slip, my bad. And considering that Sanji will, need some way to actually override the entire immortality thing, but currently he doesn't have any means of doing that at all, I kind of think it's really worth exploring what might actually happen when the serial lover Sanji runs into the serial hater Summers. Because if I had to bet here, Oda's been building up to this very specific fight for much longer than any of us have probably ever realized. I guess if I'm right, I realized it, but hey, them's the breaks. All right, I think that Sanji's battle with the immortal Psycho here will lead to one of the most important hockey blooms we've had in the series so far, and our Mr. Prince will finally become Mr. King as his black and red lightning radiates across the sun world, and I don't know, he almost becomes as strong as Zoro in the classic fashion of the story, or how he sometimes overtakes Zoro, but then Zoro immediately overtakes him again. That's the game that Oda likes to play. So let's get into it and really settle this question that's been plaguing my mind for I don't know, 4 years at this point, once and for all. Will this be, and should this be, when Sanji actually awakens his Conqueror's haki? And after we've discussed that, I'll sit down and chat with you about the evidence for it and all the counterpoints, and when that's all settled, we can then shift into some deep Gunko name lore and all the crazy shenanigans that Oda has been up with that entire story. Also, Brook fighting Emu is kind of low-key insane, even if it was only a single panel. Still, props for, holding off. But back to Sanji. And first off, I think I probably should explain to you why I even think that Sanji should get Conqueror's haki in the story, period. Since really, I've always been a little bit flip-floppy on the subject when I analyze his character. There's this video I made about comparing Zoro and Sanji as characters, and that breaks kind of that opinion down, but I do think now I'm really more leaning towards conquering Chef Cook over him being, some sort of lackluster advanced armament sous chef. And my seasoning here is pretty simple. The flavor is perfect for the cream of chicken neck and Sanji soup, and he's gonna become a frickin' beast. Because Oda, I think, has made it very clear that Sanji is the ultimate parallel to my favorite Elbafian daddy, Scopper Gaban, just, the Roger version. He's not a giant, but an immigrant, and that still counts in my book as an Elbafian. Now, Sanji, of course, parallels Scopper in just about every way possible, really, except for their attacks. Instead of those sick axes, Sanji adopts the axe kick, and I can honestly work with that. A little bit of unique flavor to the Straw Hats. But really, I think Elbaf has made it pretty clear to me and you that we, the readers, are supposed to look at Scopper and go, that's gonna be Sanji's final form, maybe a little bit stronger, right? Like Sanji being a little bit stronger at the end. They both are all about love and smooth talking the ladies, albeit to different levels of success at this point. They are both wings of their respective pirate kings, and they insist that they are the second strongest, even though we can all see that Rayleigh and Zoro usually take the cake, but they're pretty close. I gotta say, it goes even deeper than just that. Sanji is the kind of guy we can see risk his life constantly for Luffy, and one of the first titles we get for Scopper was Mountain Eater, because there's an old story about him chopping down every tree on a mountain in order to save Roger's life. Honestly, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Sea Train stuff, a situation where Sanji, unknowingly to almost everyone, went absolutely ham and put the entire team on his own back. So I think it should come as no real surprise that since my man Scopper Gaban here has Conqueror's Haki, it feels like Sanji should also, dig deep and find his own at some point too, especially, because he is really confident he has it when Scopper first mentions it, only to crush his dream, revealing it was actually Zoro all along. Regardless though, I do think that giving Sanji a big Conqueror's Haki power-up during the arc that Scopper is around would hands down make a lot of sense, right? Because then he'd have the perfect mentor to, really help him hone in on it. I've kind of made videos about this in the past, about potential little time skips coming up after this arc, and Yasan here being the one to train Luffy, but I'm kind of starting to think that the real path that Oda is taking us is one where Scopper honestly mentors Sanji after his bloom, and either he helps Zoro too, or I don't know, like maybe Rayleigh slides in and trains Zoro instead. He is a swordsman after all, and I personally think that would be pretty sick. I mean, just imagine how cool it would be that like in their little, final training arc saga that they have before the final war and everything going down on Laugh Tale and so on and so forth, the former wings of the Pirate King actually train Luffy's wings to be like their level, and then in the final fight is when Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji can actually grow, above Roger, Rayleigh, and Scopper, so they start at the same level, and everyone's gonna be like, oh my god, Luffy is as strong as Roger, and Zoro is as strong as Rayleigh, and Sanji is as strong as Scopper. But then they actually go even beyond that, and Luffy truly does the thing that always the new generation anime does, kind of leave the old guard behind. I guess the only question there would be, does someone train Luffy? And I kind of hope yes, and the perfect person, in my opinion, would be Shanks or his dad, Dragon. Either would be pretty sick. Now, obviously, that kind of already leads into the next big reason why Sanji should get the good old Color of Kings, and that's because the Mad Lad is the direct rival of Zoro, and seeing as he's also always framed as one of Luffy's strongest fighters on the crew, he actually might just need this power at this point to, stay even close to Luffy and Zoro in terms of power, because let's face it, Sanji will need some way to feel relevant in the final saga against all of these crazy broken demon immortal enemies. And he has gotten very big power-ups to match Zoro, like his Diablo Jambe, the Raid Suit, his Germa Awakening, right, Ifrit Jambe, etc. But now it kind of really feels like he's slipping further and further away from the certified King of Hell over here, who accidentally just, without even realizing it, ooh, how cool, oozes Conqueror's Haki the way that I accidentally ooze a little bit of pee when I'm standing in the pool. And I'm not even a little bit ashamed to admit that. You can't guilt me into thinking that a little bit of pool piddle is wrong, okay? Okay? Anyways, Sanji actually just kind of needs to become a Conqueror at this point, or he's really gonna just be mostly sidelined into a supporting role during the final saga, and I personally really can't see Oda doing that to one of the actual monster trio. So ultimately, I kind of feel like right now, the vibe is pretty right. He's about to fight a dude who is into evil love, I guess, evil Sanji. He's even blonde, and he's also into torturing the women that Sanji has sworn his life to defend. And as we now know, the only way to properly leave a lasting, big, flaming boot print on Summer's face is with a little bit of a Conqueror's Haki boost. Now, I will admit that there is actually a world, I think, where suddenly just unlocking it could be done really poorly by Oda, but I don't think that it will be because it is Oda. I think there is a really cool pathway for him to explore it without making it feel like Sanji's just getting a free power-up for the sake of the plot, because he kind of needs one. And since Oda is generally just a god-tier writer, I kind of feel like he will pull the strings just right to make this long-awaited moment feel actually vindicating and not sloppy. Oh, and did I mention that lightning and fire kicks are pretty hype, for me at least, because they really are. Sanji getting Conquerors would also just go unbelievably hard, just in terms of fighting and art. Like, tell me the thumbnail we cooked up for this video right here isn't just so nasty, man. Like, we are A/B testing these, in case you're wondering sometimes why thumbnails change. You can A/B test thumbnails on YouTube, so you might have not seen this one. Maybe you clicked on it because of this thumbnail. I think it goes pretty hard. All right, anyway, so I alluded to this being vindicating for our favorite 4th place Straw Hat if we go by bounty. And to talk about how I think that moment would actually go down in the story in Elbaf specifically, I should first, I think, break down the evidence for this actually happening, not just my seasoning. So Zoro fans, just take a quick break, and Sanji fans, I got you. We're gonna cook for a moment in this kitchen. The smoking gun, or I guess the smoking leg, for me, is Sanji's reaction to Scopper Gaban, specifically in chapter 1152. Feels like a while ago, doesn't it? Scopper here talks about how there are multiple Conquerors on Luffy's crew, and immediately breaks down how Zoro has that silky smooth Conqueror will in his veins. Then of course we also have Loki overreacting, who's like, I'm here too, release me, I'll destroy these evil knights. And then really quickly there is a panel of Sanji right here reacting to Scopper's statement with very obvious frustration. Am I reading that correctly? It's a very subtle moment, but I kind of think it's very important because you can see with your own eyes that Scopper totally ignoring Sanji really got to him here. He's frustrated, and I kind of feel like Oda has included this panel to show us that Sanji's growing insecurity has started to reach a critical level. Right now in the story, he's not even in discussion to defend Elbaf, and then is just pretty much relegated to the rescue squad of the, rest of the crew in chapter 1171. That's not a good thing for this dude's ego, but it might be intentional. I mean, Scopper is a very wise man. Very wise and a seasoned and experienced man. And he knows that, Luffy is of course the key to the future of the entire world. And knowing that very fact, I wouldn't be too surprised if he sees the latent potential in Sanji and is actively pushing his anger and frustration to a higher point to create that Haki bloom that he so desperately needs. The sneaky anime trope of kind of, teasing someone and, frustrating someone to the point where they just get that power up. And as we've seen throughout the story, conquering kind of seems to manifest in many, many, many different forms, and clearly Scopper has that same ego as Sanji, a couple of Blue Lock boys, it seems, channeling their inner desire to consume their rival's status. Sanji has an unyielding will to be better than Zoro, and also maybe now than Loki. That'd be kind of fun. And Scopper could very well be preying on this very idea, knowing it from himself and Rayleigh, to push Sanji over the edge into Conqueror's territory, the same way that, he might have in the past to outdo his own rival. In case you haven't noticed, insecurity tends to be a very early indicator of a power bloom in One Piece, like basically as long as the story has existed. This is a really clear principle that Oda has been building into his own storytelling. We've seen it happen with multiple characters, and specifically multiple Straw Hats, like Usopp, who had his whole arc in Water 7 and Enies Lobby, and then again in Dressrosa, which were key moments for my cowardly boy right here to become an even stronger man and kind of catch up to the rest of the crew. Or on Wano, we finally saw how nasty Robin became when she was finally trusted by Sanji in the Black Maria fight, and she just totally leveled up after pushing through her feelings of feeling useless as well. And I mean, hey, Sanji specifically also has had these arcs with moments in Skypiea, Whole Cake Island of course, and also in Wano that pushed him to level up too. So Scopper instigating this man's feelings of weakness, followed by the inevitable frustration of not being able to harm someone like Summers while trying to save Nami and Robin, in my eyes at least, is gonna be a perfect recipe, for a fine Conqueror's meal very soon. Not to mention, and I know it's a little bit silly, but the dude is a prince. I mean, he is powerful genetically and modified, and while we don't see Judge rip some crazy Conqueror's lightning ever, I do think there's a sneaky little narrative play here that Oda could have been hinting at for a long time. Sanji is a Conqueror in a really weird and messed up way through Germa. He's literally royalty, whether he likes it or not, and arguably the most important piece of evidence is that it would look so insanely cool, dude. Honestly, can you imagine seeing fire kicks infused with Conqueror's lightning, bro? That's a sick thing for Oda to draw, and that's gonna like give Sanji unlimited street cred right away. But to be fair, I did say I'd address the big counterpoint here, and so let me do that too. You see, something that I tend to hear from people in the One Piece community whenever this conversation comes up is that Sanji doesn't have a Conqueror-style goal like Luffy, Zoro, etc. His dream is to find the All Blue and be like a good chef, I guess. Like, the only thing that this dude needs to conquer is the kitchen, and that's not at all comparable, of course, to being the strongest swordsman, becoming Pirate King, or defeating the world government itself. So why would Sanji have any narrative reason to unlock this type of willpower, you know, out of nowhere, basically? To which I say, well, duh, there are so many reasons. So here's my signature Ohara counterpoint. Get countered, nerd, like Hydras in Magic the Gathering. Sorry if that doesn't make sense to you. They're all about these +1/+1 counters that boost them and make them strong. Never mind. This isn't Manu Crypt, my magic channel that you don't need to know about, but now you do because I shamelessly plugged it. What you do need to know about, though, is that Oda could easily play on storytelling's most classic trope with Sanji, because in reality, when it comes to conquering, one power is the strongest in almost every single story. Love is what conquers all. I get it, but suck it up, right? Oda's a great author, and odds are it would be used as a sort of joke by Sanji, the same way that he says his love is what actually boosts his own speed or ignites into literal flames. In reality, though, Sanji's love is what pushes him to overcome every foe, even Admiral, since he's loyal and dedicated to all women ever, and also Luffy. So love would in fact be the perfect reason, I think, for Sanji to level up here and become a little black and red lightning kicky boy. Plus, like, seriously, if you think you need to actually have a conquering goal to awaken Conqueror's Haki at this point in the story, you're not actually reading One Piece, man. There are like so many Conquerors who have very loose, if any, reason to actually have this level of Haki, and yet they do. Want some examples? Alright, here we go. Scopper, Yamato, Ace, Katakuri. Try and argue that any of them have real kingly ambition. I mean, I guess Scopper we technically don't really know, but the other three are very clearly Conqueror Haki Nepo babies, and literally Yamato is the only one with something resembling their own backbone. Ace literally wanted Whitebeard to become King of the P, and Katakuri pretty much just needed to become strong to protect his siblings from his mom's hunger rampages. And sorry to burst that bubble, but that's not conquest, that's just direct servitude. Now, you might rightfully ask the question, why then give these characters Conqueror's Haki? And I just do think that, per se, conquering something doesn't necessarily mean that I myself need to be a leader. It can also just mean that I have strong ambitions for a specific goal that then put you into that category if you are one of the few people in the world who even has access to potentially unlocking it. It's like 1 in a million, right? So basically, you could make the argument for someone like Scopper that he unlocked it because his dream aligned so strongly around, you know, fulfilling Roger's dream. Same for also Sanji, right? Like, yes, he has his own dream, but basically all of the Straw Hats meta dreams are making Luffy king of the pirates. They have a goal that encompasses more people, and protecting those people, helping those people reach those goals is, in my opinion, just what can absolutely ignite that spark if it's there and if you have the right power level. I think for someone like Yamato, it's basically in their DNA. I mean, she is Kaido's daughter, and I still am so curious who Yamato's mom is, but, you know, just being genetically the kid of a absolute monster who passively oozes Conqueror's Haki, she's pretty happy all the time. She kind of has a very solid will of her own to, like, that just manifesting in the form of Conqueror's Haki makes a lot of sense. And I would even speculate at this point that you could probably awaken Conqueror's Haki if you are strong enough in a very desperate situation, how we often see people like Luffy use it for the first time out of pure desperation, just wishing so strongly for something to happen that it just bursts out. That's literally what happened during Marineford, right? So I think that's honestly what Oda's rationale here is. But if you feel differently, please let me know. I guess my point is that Sanji could very well just ascend to this level of haki in response to his crew being threatened, as he's been slowly doing this since the beginning of the series. Sanji is in the perfect position to become a conqueror for Luffy and the entire One Piece world, making Luffy, you know, the next sun god. But honestly, more importantly than Luffy, it's actually for all the girls out there that will need him to become a king in order to stop Imu and their wicked tyranny. Plus, maybe hearing that Gunko is a princess who's being mind-controlled might also kick into high gear as well during Elbaf. Who knows? Oh, did I mention, by the way, yet that black and red lightning plus fire would look really sick and that Oda could draw like the craziest panels of all time? And as we sort of round out the Sanji stuff now, I kind of want to delve a little bit into the narrative future of Sanji if he actually becomes a conqueror, because I do think that there are a lot of small reasons that this would actually be a very important play by Oda specifically, and also just, you know, breathe a little bit of life into his character as we approach the mighty final war. I genuinely believe from my deepest part of my, well, slightly too big tummy, that this evolution in his power could also give Sanji something big to work on developing in the final saga. Here's how I kind of sort of see it. If Sanji does tap into this top tier god power, Oda's very unlikely to just give him mastery of it right out of nowhere. I mean, clearly Zoro is in that very same boat right now and has some big need to grow in that regard in this very arc. And seeing as Sanji would be the new kid on the Conqueror's block, I definitely think that in a time crunch, this dude would absolutely struggle compared to many other Conquerors we've met so far. I personally think that there's just no way that he would be able to reasonably level up in time to fight one of the Holy Knights right now. If he does tap into Conqueror's haki on Elbaf, I see it being more of a surprise attack burst that enables him to paralyze Summer for a short period just to get the girlies out of dodge there. Which to me then means that Sanji might have a very interesting fight or arc where he needs to overcome it in order to help Luffy become Pirate King, just like how he was unable to overcome Virgo, or how he needed to tap into deeper, greater power in order to take on and defeat Queen. And since we all know that Oda loves a mid-fight realization of how powers work and their moral and ethical connections to character stories, I can definitely see him doing this with Sanji in the case of that gnarly black and red lightning too. Let me draw you my own personal setup I have in my head. Sanji is one of Luffy's top dogs in the fight against the Holy Knights, right? But due to some contrived plot device, he didn't have time to fully unlock Advanced Conqueror's haki and is sort of rushed into a fight with Summers, killing him or some other Holy Knight who might still be arriving on the island. And at this point, he's really struggling because all these other Conquerors fighting the Holy Knights are winning their fights to weaken Imu, but Sanji realizes he himself isn't pulling his own weight. He needs to lock in here, and he does, because if he doesn't, Luffy's dream will die, the world will be destroyed, and every woman in the world will be enslaved or drowned by the wicked Imu. So the way that I see it, in the 11th hour, it all finally clicks in his head, and he's able to use those sick black and red lightning flames that we talked about to defeat his Holy Knight, and Imu can be weakened, allowing Luffy to save the world, bring the new dawn, and destroy the red line, which would then in turn, of course, create the all blue, bringing Sanji's dream to life with his own help as well. And I think that's probably enough for today on the Sanji train, and I know you're dying to hear about Princess Gunko, who looks great for her age, as we realized. Did you clock that she's like 80 years old? Dude, I kind of need to figure out her skincare routine because, man, as you can tell, I'm starting to look more and more like Brook each day, not Gunko. Death is coming. It's inevitable. Well, we got an absolutely key lore reveal in chapter 1173, and this name carries just as much weight as the fake name Gunko did as well. If you didn't know, the brainwashed name given to her, Gunko, translates to Child of the Army, but also War Drum, which I kind of tend to associate with all the music stuff with Brook and obviously the Drums of Liberation with Luffy. But you'll actually get to hear all about that on Tuesday in my upcoming Music in One Piece discussion, so be on the lookout for that one. It's a real fun one. But as we all sort of figured out, Gunko is not actually her real name. And much to my personal dismay, I have to announce that Brook, you're not the father.
You are not.
So this heterochromatic princess's real name is Shuri. Or maybe Shuri, kinda unclear as of me writing this, you know, what the official translation is gonna be. But I'm gonna go with Shuri because that is just the most accurate Japanese given name. And you know, as your boy living in Japan speaking some Japanese, we can probably piece together some fun stuff about her already now based on some old lore mythology and this new reveal that she was likely kidnapped after killing her own father, which also happened to kill my Blade of God Brook agenda, unfortunately, which I am very heartbroken about. I mean, alas, the idea was too cool for Oda, it seems, to make Brook a former Holy Knight, but I am very heartbroken that this didn't happen. I mean, to be fair, it kind of makes sense. It was very unlikely, you know, that Oda would make a Straw Hat a former Holy Knight. It's sort of the antithesis of everything that they're supposed to stand for. But come on, a very young boy like me can dream, right? And then get those dreams crushed by Oda. We can also determine that the kingdom that Gunko is from, or sorry, that Shuri is from, was the same one that Brook was a military convoy leader in, placing it in the West Blue. But it does have some direct ties to the world government and possibly Marizua itself? Like, I do wonder exactly where that part of the story is gonna go, and I'm pretty interested in it right now. Like, I gotta be honest, that's like the one little thread of hope I still hold on to in that we got in this entire chapter, that, you know, Gunko is still tied to the Holy Land in some way, shape, or form. Maybe there's still something there, you know, I don't know, but maybe there's like a colony of celestial dragons or something like that, or maybe a princess that we don't know about from the Holy Knights. But at this point, that's just copium, I gotta say, but I want to keep it alive. Now, obviously, the big reveal here is that Gunko is apparently a father slayer and, you know, subsequently also a Kingslayer, which is a very cool title, already though owned by Jaime Lannister, and also a fun song by Bring Me the Horizon featuring Baby Metal. Fun fact, I actually got to hear them live once. My friend Joey took me. I'm not a metal guy usually, but I had a pretty good time, and one of my team members really wanted you all to know this one as well, so now we talked about it. Anyways, immediately I kind of had to ask myself, and Oda, and the Ether, did Shuri kill her father because of Imu? Like, was she manipulated and possessed and then killed him? Or is this more of a situation like Loki and Herald? Because kind of off rip, it really feels like Oda's making a parallel to Loki and the, you know, misinterpreted murder of Herald here. She doesn't come across as a bad person, I gotta say. But it's also kind of hard to tell what's going on because Brook seems really upset when he calls her a father killer since his mentor was her father. So was it a misunderstanding and Brook is the fool here? Kind of like how everyone thought that Loki was guilty, but he wasn't. Or is Gunko Loki actually a murderer before Imu's influence? I mean, if that's what happens, why even do the memory erase though? Doesn't really make sense, so I think it's more Gunko's innocent and something else went down. And again, since we've just literally seen this happen in this very arc already with Herald a couple of chapters ago, it also really seems like maybe the Great Emu's got a bit of a pattern going on, which by the way, I feel like is sort of Emo's MO at this point, to just overthrow kingdoms and make them, you know, part of the government through the act of regicide, which, fun fact, is also what I called it as a kid when I defeated all the elemental golems in Pokemon Emerald. Get bodied, Regitrio, right? Anyways, I mean, that was kind of Emu's supposed plan with Herald and Elbaf, manipulating the monarchy and forcibly acquiring a kingdom through that technique. And Shuri might just be a much earlier example from that in the past. Like, now that I think about it, this could even be what happened to all 20 of the original kingdoms back during the Void Century, maybe? Like, that would be an absolute nutty reveal and could even tie into another kingdom we are very familiar with and that has some weird connections to Emu. Alabasta. Now just go out on a limb here and say that this Gunko stuff is Oda showing us what Emu might try at least and pull off with Princess Vivi, now that Papa Cobra's buried in a weird little hole in the back of the flower room, turning into prime regal king platinum level fertilizer. If I had to guess, I'd say that Alabasta as a kingdom has been the apple of Emu's weird red little eyes for quite a while now, like 800 years or so probably at this point. Lily really struck some sort of nerve with that whole poneglyph issue, and considering that they had information on the location of Pluton, it feels like Alabasta is a prime target for the big move right now. Maybe also because Alabasta is, at least the city of Arubana, is the oldest known structure in the One Piece world at this point, so there's probably something else there. Got a fun video coming up on that one too, but I don't want to spoil too much. Anyways, focusing a little bit more on Shuri here, I'm really curious about when she actually became Imu's handmaiden and part of the Manmeyer family altogether. And how does that even work? Like, did Imu possess her as a 10-year-old and then in a weird, messed up way just groomed her into the handmaiden in their flower garden? Ooh. Good thing there is nothing contemporary with that comparison. Show the Imu files. Anyways, was Gunko raised without the weird mind alteration and then forcibly married into the Manmeyer family and then possessed by Imu, or just occasionally possessed by Imu? Either kind of feels pretty likely, but there's another way that I think this could have actually gone down. I think that Oda's not really the kind of guy to just directly have Gunko and Loki have the exact same backstory, right? So what if we're, being led astray here because Brook is the lens that we view that story through? I mean, Brook's apparently mad or upset with Gunko because she killed her father, and obviously what we're supposed to think is that Imu possessed her and did that instead. Now, yes, that is probably the most likely option, but I do think that Oda might just flip the story a little bit on its head here and show us that Brook's mentor, Gunko's father, might actually have been the bad guy here too. The same way that we thought Harold would be too. That way we'd see two very different versions of the same situation. Now you might not have realized this, but Oda's not exactly an author that shies away from messed up slavery and forced situations with One Piece. I think there's a very decent chance that Brook's mentor wanted to be part of the Celestial Dragons and secretly was willing to sell Shuri's hand to Imu, as like a kind of tribute to the big one, to the Great Mu, and as a result, she then killed her dad to prevent being forced into basically a slave marriage. Now, this would be very tragic and messed up because she ends up a celestial dragon anyways, as we know. It's kind of giving Ginny and Kuma vibes again for sure. Now, for Brook's sake, I hope that's not the case, but for my own sake, consuming a really well-written story, I kind of want it to be. Alright, so now you and I are on the same page about Gunko, Shuri, whatever I'm supposed to call her at this point. So many name changes, like the same with like Rox and Zebek and Davy. Can we get some characters who just stick with their names, please? Anyways, what's the big theory now, right, that I proposed? Why did I say her name was important? Well, I did some digging. I've been reading a lot recently on, Japanese mythology, and Oda's using all of that, by the way. I've also been reading books on Japanese history. Oda's using a lot of that too. And again, not sure if someone else talked about this. This here is Shuri Castle, which is in the capital, also called Shuri, which was the capital of the Ryukyu Kingdom. Fun fact, I went here in 2018 and it burned down like a year later. They've been rebuilding it, but that was crazy, like beautiful place. And then I saw in the news, I think 2019, was it during COVID? 2020, that it just burned down. And I was like heartbroken, but they're, building it back up. Absolute crazy place, magical. Anyways, it turns out that within the religion practiced at Shuri Castle, there is a very specific tradition that lines up really well with Gunko's overall story. In this religion, a woman close to the king, usually a daughter, but sometimes a sister, queen, really any connection, would be named the so-called Kikoe Ogomi, a form of high priestess. I think that already lines up really well with the fact that Gunko wears a habit outfit, which is, typically what a priestess would wear, and serves as handmaiden to Imu, the god/king of the world, in this entire church vibe that the Holy Land has going on, right? You get it. Now let's continue the religion lesson here, because there's definitely more here that stood out to me when it came to Gunko's real name and what it could mean for her character. In this real-world ancient religion, the High Priestess uses their spiritual power to protect the king as well as the kingdom at large. Responsibilities such as providing health and long life to the king, which could directly connect to Mu's immortal life, of course. They also pray for crops and good harvests, which is something the Holy Land needs in order to survive, and which also was what Dragon chose to first dismantle before he ever tried attacking the Holy Land altogether, to just deprive them of their rations. Then the priestess also ensures safety for sea travel and accompanies them for long pilgrimages, sort of like exactly of how we were introduced to Gunko, since she's allowed to leave the flower room on missions like the Holy Knights going to Elbaf and then kind of being the vessel there for Imu. Something we actually know is fairly uncommon for her, at least based on the reactions of the Manmeyer family during God Valley, when they were really surprised and commented on how Gunko was actually out and about for a change. So it really seems like Oda was familiar with the Ryukyu Kingdom religion in real life. I mean, honestly most Japanese people are. I asked some of my friends, they all know about it. I think it's something that just gets taught in school here. And so I think Oda has directly chosen to embody a lot of these traditions in Shuri's character and I guess now Gunko. And that by itself I think is already a pretty cool thing, but what major impact does it actually have on the story, you might ask? And how does it tie into Gunko's role in the future? Don't you worry, I got some ideas. One thing that really stood out to me and my team during doing research for the video was that the Ryukyu religion also features 8 key shrines, which should immediately jump out to you, lore junkies, because one thing that really stands out in all of the One Piece lore and all the crazy stuff going on is the connection between the number 8 and Joy Boy's symbol, which of course are these 8 points around one big circle in the middle. And I kind of wanted to know if Gunko's fear of Nika also came from this religion, and I honestly kind of think that it might, but not in the way that I initially thought. I kind of expected him to have some sort of evil or darker flame or fire or sun god, but that's actually not the case. The central god of this religion is a fire/sun god, specifically the hearth god Hinukan, who is a guardian of the family fire and the sacred communal flame that the high priestess officiates worship for. That's kinda giving pretty big Nika vibes, right? The whole sun god of prosperity thing. And it kinda makes me wonder, was the very reason that Imu stole Shuri from her kingdom in the West Blue was to prevent their culture from worshipping Nika? And in a turn of fate, Imu has made Gunko now actually do fear Nika, since deep down at her core, Shuri is actually a former priestess of Nika. That would be an absolutely insane reveal that kind of tracks with what we saw on God Valley. One of the major reasons there was also the sun god worship and, you know, taking the name God Valley being an assault to Imu and the Davy clan being there. But it would also explain a lot about why her character has become such a central element of Brook's story specifically, and now kind of Elbaf as a whole, right? We might actually have just gotten the reveal that another island out there in the West Blue also worships Nika and might have lore to be revealed about him in addition as well. Which of course means that we need to free Gunko, because she might very well be essential for bringing the new dawn, or maybe even worse, might be directly responsible for manipulating and directing the mother flame that Imu just had created. You know, remember the brushstroke over Lulucia? I mean, the arrow fruit allows her to direct a lot of things, including concept, so maybe, just maybe, the Forbidden Sun is about to be wielded and we're gonna see the true power of Vegapunk's crazy invention that has only been kind of hinted at so far. And this of course would also be a wonderful way to kind of, you know, justify the Brook-Gunko flashback that we're still hopefully gonna get, where then not only we see their relationship, but also more about Nika or Joy Boy from that island. And I also kind of wonder if there are any other big truth bombs we haven't seen with Vegapunk lately, honestly. Actually, I think there are, and it's all thanks to his big message at the end of Ekid Island, which you can help me unravel here in this very long video on screen. We go into everything he talks about, especially in the modern context of everything we know with the Harley and so on and so forth, so check that out. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Thanks so much to all of our fantastic, beautiful, and what's a great compliment? Oh, quick, smart Patreon members. Appreciate you guys. Makes a massive difference to what we do here, and I will see you in the next video on Tuesday for some music.